Part 36. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 351. Chapter 351 Dragon King Temple. Everyone's curiosity was aroused by Miaoji, and they all put down their chopsticks, stopped eating, and just stared at him. "What's wrong?" Li urged anxiously. Miaoji stood up, talking and gesticulating. "For example, this area is the mountain that was excavated, and next to the stream is the Dragon King Temple. A circle of ditches was dug around the Dragon King Temple to divert water, and the stream flows from top to bottom. When we get here, we are forced to change the route. We first go around the Dragon King Temple and then continue downstream. Do you think there is something wrong with this?" Li Shi nodded repeatedly, "Indeed. And they said they were from the government. Which government would do such a stupid thing?" Miaoji patted his thigh. "No. If we weren't locals, we wouldn't have been able to see that the stream had been changed. In the past, I guess there were people guarding it, cleaning up the mud and removing the stone blockage, and everything was fine. I don't know what's going on. All the people who dug the mountain in the past 2 years have disappeared. The government has sealed the mountain so that no one can touch it. No one cares about the Dragon King Temple anymore. Maybe the mud and rocks fell and blocked the ditch. We found that the ditch surrounding the Dragon King Temple was cut off in the middle, and the entire stream poured directly into the hollowed-out mountain. It was not known how deep the mountain was, and water could not be filled even if the water was poured into it. I don't know if this has anything to do with the drop in water levels here." Old Man Yang stood up suddenly, with an excited look on his face. "It does matter. It's most likely the Dragon King Temple you mentioned that caused the trouble. Good boy, I'm so grateful to have met you today, otherwise we would still be thinking about it, and we wouldn't know how to find the year of the monkey, the horse, and the moon. Only then can we find the Dragon King Temple." Miaoji did not expect that he would be able to help if he came here today, so he was both happy and fortunate. The next day before dawn, Old Man Yang asked Yang Lao-san to take Miaoji to the workshop to pull bricks and tiles. He ran to the village chief and told him the situation. The village chief directly called Yang Yang, Yang Jun, Yang Han, and others, and almost a dozen people went back with Miaoji. Because there were so many people there, everyone helped Miaoji pull 2 carts of bricks and tiles. Miaoji was flattered. Miao village is really in a very deep mountainous place, even more mountainous than Pingshan Valley. The ox cart cannot move halfway, and the bricks and tiles have to be carried in manually. Yang Lao-san and others' minds were buzzing. In order to find out the truth, they had to bite the bullet and go into the mountain. This time, they feel that the hardships they suffered in the first half of their lives are nothing. Looking at the 2 people who were leading them, everyone felt a little bit bitter in their hearts, and they continued to help them deliver their things to Miao village. As soon as a few people appeared outside the Miao village, people from the village came out to help them. When the village owner learned that Yang Lao-san and the others were selling bricks and tiles and checking out the Dragon King Temple, his attitude suddenly became much more enthusiastic, and he even asked a middle-aged man from Miaokang to personally lead them there. The place leading to the Dragon King Temple was overgrown with thorns. Miaokang, speaking in a strong mountain voice, took a machete and chopped a few branches while walking, and said, "The Dragon King Temple is so strange. It has everything, but no one worships it. I don't know what those people are doing." Yang Han asked expressionlessly, "How do you know no one is worshipping you? Didn't the village owner just say that you have been working under those people for more than 10 years? Miaokang grinned, showing his big yellow teeth. "I did work there for a long time, but we could only dig mountains, and we couldn't go anywhere else. We even ate, drank, and defecated in the cave. We could only go home during the spring festival every year. 2 days later, I have to go back to work. I haven't been to the Dragon King Temple in the past 10 years. I didn't find this out until I took someone in to check it out recently. The temple is not big, and the incense burner on the altar table is empty and there is nothing. Originally, they wanted to take the opportunity to pick up some cheap ones, but the result was so disappointing. While talking, the group saw the shadow of the Dragon King Temple. Miao Kong pointed to the Dragon King Temple and said, "We have to go around. The road here is flooded." When they arrived at the Dragon King Temple, they discovered that it was exactly what Miao Kong said. The palm-sized temple was empty and empty. It seemed that everything was weird, but there was nothing wrong with it. Yang Lao-san reached out and touched the most conspicuous incense burner and wiped it with his big hand. He used too much force and accidentally touched the mechanism of the secret door. A large hole suddenly opened under the altar. Everyone was dumbfounded. Only Yang Han looked normal and said calmly, "Report to the official. Xia Yuchen has been very melancholy recently. He can't figure out which he has offended. He was about to be promoted, but something went wrong at this moment." It was the Chinese New Year, and all the officials in the county government were on vacation. He bit the bullet and asked Dong Ziyi to call Gao Yang and Niu Yuwu to Miajiezai. Gao Yang and others were about to set off when they saw Xia Yuchen getting into the carriage with a face. "Sir, are you going too?" Gao Yang asked. Xia Yuchen depressedly opened the car curtain and let out a long sigh of relief. "I don't want to go, but my eyelids keep twitching and I always feel like something is going to happen again. Can I not go?" "Bah, bah, bah. Sir, you don't want to say these unlucky words during the Chinese New Year." Niu Yuwu's expression was hard to describe. Xia Yuchen sneered and said, "You are a writer and you still believe in ghosts and gods. Come on, stop talking nonsense." The group of people hurriedly arrived at the Dragon King Temple, only to find that many people had already gathered here, including people from Rongsha village and Miajiezai. It seems that human nature is the same, and they will join in wherever there is excitement. Dong Ziyi pushed aside the crowd and opened a path for Xia Yuchen. Standing outside the Dragon King Temple, the group could see the dark and bottomless hole under the altar. "Has anyone been down there?" Gao Yang asked after looking around. Everyone shook their heads. Niu Yuwu took a deep breath and consciously asked his brothers to prepare the tools for going down the hole. The first time the four people went down, they all eagerly waited for news on the shore. Almost 2 hours later, Niu Yuwu became disgraced. He came to Xia Yuchen angrily under everyone's gaze and reported, "Sir, Jiao Pengju, that turtle grandson, was so cunning that he was smelting ore under the Dragon King Temple. Everything was sealed in boxes, and the boxes were all packed inside. No wonder the imperial court sent so many people but couldn't find it. In addition, my subordinates suspected that there were many traps set up below. Ordinary people would die if they went down there. My subordinates did not dare to touch them. They only took a general look and came up." Several old officials who came up behind Niu Yuwu nodded in agreement. There is indeed an agency, and it should be a huge group of agencies. There are even beryl mines, so that the water is not enough to fill them. This situation is very abnormal. Sir, I think you need to report it. The court is waiting for the emperor to decide, but we can't do it. Who would have thought that there is something else going on beneath an inconspicuous Dragon King Temple? Even Huang Zhenyang and the others did not suspect that there was something wrong with the Dragon King Temple even after several visits. Xia Yuchen's expression was extremely serious for a moment. His sharp eyes swept over everyone present, and he ordered sternly, "Come here, seal this place for me, and no one else can come near." Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 352. Chapter 352 is not a good thing. He only brought so many people this time. This was the territory of Miao village. He didn't dare to entrust it to others. He only asked Gao Yang and Dong Ziyi to go back with him. The others, including the villagers of Rongsha village, All stayed to help guard. Compared to Miyagiazai, he trusts the people in Rongsha village more. Xie Yuchen wrote a letter to Fukan as soon as he returned to the county government office. He wrote it eloquently and had people rush to send it out. Dong Zedao said, "Sir, the matter is serious. I'm afraid it won't be useful to send all the people from the county government. During this period, I'm afraid I'll have to find someone else to help." Xie Yuchen understood Dong Zi's worry and slowly closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened his eyes again and ordered, "Go to Rongsha village to find the village chief and ask them to call more people to Miao village. Don't make any noise and wait for the news from Fukan information." The person who delivered the message worked hard all the way without even daring to rest. He rushed to Fukan in one breath and settled at Yuran Inn. Steward Zhu led the people into the big house quickly. "Madam, the Ping'an County magistrate wants to see you." Zhang Ning and Ji Wei were drinking tea when the Yaman came in and knelt down with a plop, saying loudly, "Master Marquis, I am here to see you and the prefect off at the order of the magistrate of Ping'an County, Mr. Xie." Ji Wei was stunned for a moment, then he chuckled and said, "What a coincidence. Why does Mr. Xie have anything to do with me?" Ji Wei reported his family name, and the Yaman official did not dare to delay. He quickly took out the 2 letters and said respectfully, "In the upper reaches of the Wei River, a secret cave was discovered under the Dragon King Temple near Miyajiazai, Ping'an County. Jiao Pengju, the former prefect of Kuzhu, found the ore is smelted there, and everything, including the smelting stuff, is in it." "Is it absolutely true?" Ji Wei was so excited that he lost his composure. The officer nodded repeatedly. "Master Xie sent someone down to have a look, but there are many agencies below. This matter may also be related to the drop in the water level in the lower reaches of the Wei River and the riots of wild beasts in the mountains. The situation is very serious. Master Xie cannot handle this matter and needs the prefect Your Excellency reports to the court." Ji Wei suddenly looked at Zhang Ning. Zhang Ning understood immediately. Master Ji is sending people to Tongchang Mansion now. Maybe he can still see the emperor. Even if the emperor has already left Tongchang Mansion, he can't go far, but he must go quickly. As she spoke, she looked at the Yaman officer and ordered in a calm voice, "You and Master Ji's people go to see the emperor. Don't be afraid. Just tell the truth. I will send someone to go back to Mr. Xie for you." Ji Wei quickly thanked him, left Dongli Villa in a hurry, and dispatched troops to Ping'an County as quickly as possible. The Yaman officer was escorted by a group of soldiers towards Tongchang Mansion. 2 horses were killed along the way, and half of the horses were exhausted before they finally caught up with Longxia. The emperor was sitting in the swaying carriage, looking at the bleak winter scenery of Tongchang Mansion. He felt an inexplicable anger in his heart and slammed it on the small coffee table. "If you punish me again, I will have to chop off everyone's heads." Dekang carefully wiped the emperor's hands on the side and persuaded him in a flattering manner, "Your Majesty, in my opinion, Tongchang Magistrate Li Mo has more than enough to protect his achievements and not enough to develop. In addition, there is no one around him to make suggestions. When encountering such a thing, the son lost his position, which is reasonable. It's just that so many people were not properly resettled by the disaster. They really deserve to be punished. You have already told him about the situation in Kuzhu Prefecture. If he can deny the crime, you can give him another chance. If he can't even copy it. Okay, then. Then I failed." The emperor took a sip of tea depressedly, without being comforted at all. Dekang said with a smile, he really didn't know how to advise him in this situation. At this moment, the carriage stopped. The emperor was almost hit. Dekang took the opportunity to vent his anger on the emperor's behalf and shouted sternly, "What's going on? Don't you want your head?" The driver was frightened to death and quickly turned around to beg for mercy, "Your Majesty, someone is blocking the carriage in front, and it seems they are chasing him from behind." The emperor winked at Dekang, and Dekang hurriedly got out of the car to check the situation. After a while, he hurriedly led the yamen to the front of the carriage. "Your Majesty, there is a major discovery over there in Kuzhu." The dragon turned back halfway along the road. The emperor only felt as if he had been wandering around Kuzhu Prefecture and Tongchang Prefecture. He didn't know whether to be angry or happy. It snowed heavily in winter, and the green hills and trees in Miajiazai turned white overnight. Ji Wei came to support with more than 100 soldiers. When Xia Yuchen saw him, it was like seeing a savior. He wiped his tired face and hurried over to greet him. "Master Magistrate, you are finally here." "I can hardly hold on." Xia Yuchen had a bitter face, which looked unlucky no matter how he looked at it. Ji Wei leaned into his ear and whispered, "Are those things under the Dragon King Temple?" Xia Yuchen nodded wildly. Ji Wei breathed a sigh of relief. "You have made a great contribution this time, and I am also taking advantage of it." "Why are you working so hard?" "Your Majesty, you don't know something." Xia Yuchen took Ji Wei around to the back of the Dragon King Temple, pointed at the mine and said, "Sir, have you seen that this mine is like a bottomless pit that can't be filled no matter how much water is poured into it? Jiupeng dug the mountain 10 times after a few years. I don't know what shape it has been hollowed out. Looking at the wild beasts rioting nearby, I suspect that the mountain will collapse." Ji Wei's expression changed drastically. "Seriously?" Xia Yuchen nodded wildly, his ugly face as pale as paper. "Originally, I didn't dare to think so, but after a few days here, some experienced mountain people said that something was wrong around here, and the wild beasts around were nowhere to be seen. The people of Miao village also said that there are wolves near their village, and it is estimated that the wild animals have escaped. Xiaoguan originally asked the villagers of Rongsha village to help guard this place, but later they found out that something was wrong and asked them to withdraw. Now there are only county government officials here. In this case, anyone who enters the Dragon King Temple will probably die inside. Jiupengju, we have been killed. The trap under the Dragon King Temple cannot be unlocked, and we dare not move those boxes easily. What a dilemma." These words were like pouring cold water on Ji Wei, making him feel cold. Xia Yuchen returned Ji Wei's deep thought and quickly pulled him to the temporary resting place in Miao village. "Sir, think about it, the wild beasts in the mountains are the most alert. If they don't sense danger, they will not leave their territory easily." The official had people investigate and found that all wild beasts within a 5-mile radius around the mine had left. The good news is that there is only Miajiazai nearby, which is within the safe range. The bad news is that the mountain has collapsed. It is very likely that we will never be able to find the exact location of the Dragon King Temple. Of course, it is also possible that the mechanism below will be destroyed. There are too many uncertain factors, and the subordinates don't know what to do. Ji Wei was silent for a long time, and then asked slowly, "Have those mountain people said how long this mountain can last?" Xia Yuchen shook his head. "Your Excellency, you have also seen the water flow situation. It's hard to say with such a large amount of water washing away." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 353. Chapter 353, The Mountain Collapsed. Ji Wei's brows almost knitted into a knot, and he told the soldiers beside him, "Send someone to seal the mine within a radius of 5 miles to prevent unsuspecting people from entering by mistake." "Thank you, sir. Let's go back to the county office first. The emperor is expected to arrive in a few days. We have to explain the situation clearly in advance, so as not to overjoy the emperor and make him angry when the time comes." He thought that his fortune was good and he could overcome it, but he didn't expect that one wave would come after another, which would kill him. 5 days later, The emperor's dragon carriage had not yet arrived in Ping'an County. Ji Wei and Xia Yuchen went to the Dragon King Temple again to investigate the situation. This time they brought many talented people with them. Before the group arrived at Miao Village, they only heard there was a loud noise, the mountains trembled, leaves and fruits fell one after another, insects and birds fled in panic, and everything was in chaos. Ji Wei had just experienced an earthquake in Kuzhou Prefecture, and he instinctively thought it was another natural disaster. It was Xia Yuchen who reacted first, shouting with a white face, "Master Ji, the mountain has collapsed." Ji Wei reacted and rushed forward. Standing on the wall of Miao Village, you can just see the scene over the Dragon King Temple. At this time, the mountain tops have disappeared, and the soldiers stationed there all looked pale, as if they were seriously ill. Gao Yang staggered over with his men and reported, "Sir, it's true that the whole 5 miles radius of the mine was affected. The mountain suddenly disappeared and disappeared before our eyes. And the stream doesn't know where it is going now went." Xia Yuchen's expression changed and he ordered anxiously, "Quick! Look upstream and find the end of the stream. If the stream changes course and rushes into the village, it will be troublesome." Gao Yang did not dare to delay and immediately took the people away. Xia Yuchen was still frightened, and Ji Wei's eyes were blank. They didn't even know how they were sent back to the county government. After Emperor Longjia arrived in Ping'an County, Ji Xia and his wife dragged their exhausted bodies to pick up the driver outside the city. The emperor was very anxious and waved his hand, "Go to Miao Village." Ji Wei stepped forward and replied, "Your Majesty, the Dragon King Temple is gone." In the county government office. After washing up, the emperor was able to listen to Ji Wei's report. After learning that the mountain collapsed, his face had always been particularly smelly. Dekang was so frightened that he didn't dare to take a breath while waiting on the side. After a while, the emperor snorted leisurely and glared at the two of them, "The mine is within your jurisdiction. You don't even know there is such a big secret hidden under the Dragon King Temple. This is how you share my worries and solve my problems of. I deserve to die." Ji Wei looked like he had no love in his life. At this time, he was so desperate that he didn't want to struggle anymore. Wei Guangxian slowly stepped forward, clasped his fists and bowed, "Your Majesty, I have sent people to check. Several mountains around the mine have collapsed, and the mine has been filled. I suspect that the diversion of the stream above the Dragon King Temple is itself a part of the agency. Huan, if Magistrate Xia hadn't discovered what was going on under the Dragon King Temple, the secrets there would have been hidden forever in the earth even if the emperor ordered people to catch up with them for decades. So according to your words, Xia Yuchen and Ji Wei have no faults and still have merit," the emperor said angrily and mockingly. Wei Guangxian did not deny it, "Your Majesty, at least we now know where those things are, so what if the mountain collapses? You can send people to dig. If they can't dig it out in 1 year, it will take 2 years. If it doesn't work in 2 years, it will take 5 years. 5 years if it doesn't work, we can always find those things in 10 years." The emperor's face finally looked better. After he went to Miao Village in person and saw the collapse of the mountain in person, he stopped pointing. Ji Wei scolded, and only ordered, "Leave all matters concerning Kuzhou's coastal city wall and Dragon King Temple to you. Once these 2 matters are properly handled, come to Beijing to see me. If you don't do it well, you will never show up again in your life in front of me." "I obey." Ji Wei watched the emperor leave with trepidation. Xia Yuchen was worried, "Master Ji, does your Majesty mean that you want us to guard this place all the time?" Ji Wei glanced at him coolly and said, "It's me, not you. Magistrate Xia, you should be promoted smoothly after taking office this year. I congratulate you in advance." Although the Dragon King Temple collapsed, it did not harm the lives of the people, nor did it affect people's livelihood. The emperor would not trouble Xia Yuchen regardless of right or wrong, and coupled with his previous political achievements, there was a high probability that he would be able to leave smoothly. Xie Yuchen's face became a little better after hearing these words, and he comforted Ji Wei in turn. Master Ji, return to Kuzhu Mansion with peace of mind. The official will send people to keep an eye on this place. After the situation stabilizes in a few days, the official will send people in to investigate. I'll report the situation to you carefully. Ji Wei really didn't want to leave, but there was still a lot of things waiting for him in Fukin, so he had to leave. Before leaving, he made a special trip to Rongsha village with Xie Yuchen. The incident at the Dragon King Temple did not have any impact on Rongsha village. No one even took the initiative to mention it. Everyone was still busy in the workshop and in the fields. Xie Yuchen brought Ji Wei to Old Man Yang's house early in the morning. Zhou recognized Ji Wei at a glance and knelt down with a plop. A common woman pays homage to the magistrate and the county magistrate. Others in the Yang family were also frightened and had to follow suit. Ji Wei quickly stopped him. Old master and madam, I am here today about the Dragon King Temple. Can you say a few words? Okay. Old Man Yang quickly asked Yang Lao-san to go into the house and move the stool. Ji Wei sat down and asked straight to the point. I heard from Mr. Xie that it was a hunter from your village who first discovered the strangeness in the river. Is that person in the village? Old Man Yang was stunned for a moment and felt very regretful. It would have been better if you had come here 2 days earlier. The man you are talking about is called Yang Han. He is the best hunter in our village. His family has no land and does not have to farm. He only relies on hunting, being able to support both father and daughter. Their life is better than that of other villagers. He often stayed in the mountains. In the past, when his daughter was still with him, he would sometimes leave her for 3 to 5 days. Later, when her daughter was older and she was sent away, he lived alone and was free and comfortable, often not seeing anyone for 10 days and a half. But this is normal. He does business in partnership with my eldest grandson and my eldest grandson's relatives from my eldest grandson's Yu family. They collect mountain products, game, and the like. Even an old man like me doesn't quite understand. They then send them to Songzi town and sell them to people passing by. Although working as a merchant ship is hard work, you can earn a lot. I met him 2 days ago when he was heading into the mountains and exchanged a few words with him. Seeing that he had brought so many things with him, he would probably have to go for a long time. Ji Wei and Xie Yuchen looked at each other and did not give up easily. Then did he say which mountain he went to? Old Man Yang shook his head without even thinking. Sir, don't bother. Look at the mountains here. We can go from Ping'an County to Huayan County and several other counties. Where can we find it in the vast mountains? But when he goes into the mountains, everyone feels at ease. Ji Wei was puzzled. Why is this? Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 354. Chapter 354. A Blessing in Disguise. Old Man Yang said gently, the men in our village are all working outside to build houses for others, and the women and some who can still work with limited mobility are all in the workshops. If wild boars or other wild animals come down the mountain, they won't be able to deal with it. Yang Han is here, it's different. He knows about any unusual movements in the mountains and will tell the villagers in advance so that everyone can prepare. Our village cannot live without him. So that's it, Ji Wei thought thoughtfully, so he is so sharp because he stays in the mountains all year round. Old Man Yang nodded repeatedly, that's for sure. Orion can't do it if he's not keen. Ji Wei thought about it and felt that this was the truth, so he stood up and left immediately. The two left Rongsha village. On the way back, Ji Wei and Xie Yuchen warned, the situation below the Dragon King Temple is unknown. Don't let people go down easily. Ask the local mountain people for their opinions. I would rather not dig out anything. No lives can be lost because of this. They are now striving to achieve success and failure, and must be careful every step they take. Xie Yuchen agreed one by one. As soon as Ji Wei left, Yang Han returned to the village and took 2 pheasants to Old Man Yang's house. Old Man Yang felt numb all over and was extremely anxious. If I had known you were coming back, I wouldn't have told you that you were traveling far away. The prefects have all come to our village today and are looking for you by name. You should hurry up and go to the county seat and tell me. Maybe we can still catch up. Yang Han smiled, not worried at all. Uncle, did the prefect tell me what to do with me? Old Man Yang was stunned and shook his head subconsciously. I didn't say anything. Then he told Yang Han everything Ji Wei said today. Yang Han chuckled and put the pheasant down. Uncle, it looks like nothing is wrong. If there is really something serious, I would go to the village chief and I won't come to you to inquire. Besides, I only hunt, and I haven't done much except noticing that the water level has dropped. I don't know anything about it, so I won't cause trouble. Old Man Yang was angry and hated the iron. Why are you still as lonely and stubborn as before? What a great opportunity. If you can become familiar with the prefect, it will only do you good and no harm. Think about it, as Xiahua grows older, you will have to talk about other people's things in the future. If you don't think about yourself, you always have to think about her, right? Old Man Yang talked a lot from his heart. When he came to his senses, Yang Han had already walked out of the door. Uncle, I understand, don't worry, I will definitely perform well next time I have a chance. That's right. As soon as old Yang finished speaking, he found that Yang Han had disappeared, and he was so angry that he slapped his thigh. Yang Jun led Miao Ji over to discuss the bricks and tiles with Old Man Yang. Old Yang was diverted and immediately forgot about Yang Han. Have you, the owner of the village, agreed on how many bricks and tiles you want? Old Man Yang enthusiastically poured tea for Miao Ji. If this deal goes through, their village will be able to make a lot of money. Miao Ji shook his head apologetically. Grandpa, you should have heard about the situation in the Miao village. Our way into the village was affected before. Now the government has sent people to seal off the entire 5-mile radius of the Dragon King Temple. We have to leave the village. It's not easy, and this one is even more difficult. A while ago, our village leader asked to see the county magistrate and told him everything. The county magistrate meant that from now on, many people from the government would be guarding the place and they would not evacuate until it was safe. No people from the government could stay. The place is just right for us to requisition our village, but we all have to move out. What? The whole village has moved out? Just like Pingshan Valley, Old Man Yang was a little surprised. Back then, Pingshangu was too remote, and the whole village was cheated by unscrupulous traders. Later, everyone made money and moved out, so that their children and grandchildren would not have to suffer the same thing. But they made money, and every household spent it on their own. When people buy land with money and report it to the government, this is not the case in Miajiazai at all. Old Man Yang couldn't even imagine how much money the government would spend to accommodate so many people. Miao Ji saw Old Man Yang's doubts and said with a naive smile, there are 42 families in our village, with 239 people, more or less. The county magistrate gave us an ownerless house. There is also a flat mountain COL in the barren mountain, not far from the official road. As long as we build the road ourselves, it will be much easier to get out than before. The village owner called every household over to discuss it. Most of them had no objections, and the matter was settled. I came to you to continue ordering bricks and tiles from you, but it will take a while. We now have to clear out the mountain COL and allocate land. We can only start building a house when things are done. Old Man Yang immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and his smile gradually widened. It's easy to talk, easy to talk. You can talk whenever you want. Anyway, our workshop is open all year round. After the matter was settled, Miao Ji left. Ms. Li was in a good mood because the business in Miajiazai was still going on. MRS Joe took the opportunity to say, "Auntie, what do you think of Meowji?" "It's good, the young man can do the job." Lee had a good impression of Meowji. Mr. Joe was overjoyed and struck while the iron was hot and said, "What do you think about telling Arya to Meowji?" Lee's smile immediately disappeared. "What else do you want to do?" Joe quickly explained, "Daughter-in-law, haven't you been thinking about what you told me before? At first, you asked your daughter-in-law to find a reliable man far away for Arya. This Meowji was recommended to me by my sister-in-law, but Meowji, our village is poor and it is in such a remote mountain. My daughter-in-law couldn't make up her mind, so she didn't talk to you. Later, Bai Yunyang interfered with it, and the daughter-in-law didn't want to talk about it anymore. Didn't I hear Meowji say that Meowji as I had moved out, and life would definitely get better and better in the future? In addition, Meowji was indeed a good daughter-in-law. I just mentioned it to you. If you think it's not successful, just pretend I didn't say it." In fact, it was not that she wanted to mention this matter, she just wanted to find an opportunity to ease the relationship between her and her parents-in-law and seek praise. Lee did not respond on the spot, and did not mention the matter to Old Man Yang until she returned to her room after dark. "Is that Meowji suitable for our area?" When Old Man Yang heard this, he knew what Mr. Lee was planning, and shook his head without even thinking about it. "You'd better not worry about this matter. People go to higher places, and water flows to lower places. Arya went to Fukin, and there are 8 out of 10 cases. 9th, I don't want to come back, so I can't figure it out. Arya is not her." Lee's blood suddenly ran cold. It's April in the blink of an eye. The capital city of Kuzhu is full of flowers and willows and is full of vitality. The students of Kuzhu Academy are all tensing up to prepare for the college examination in a few days. In recent days, the business of MRS Joe's shop has also improved a lot. If you want to ask why, it is natural that she launched Gao's Hung Peach Cake, which symbolizes the title of the gold list. Everyone cheers for this meaning. MRS Joe was busy greeting the guests when a group of people rushed to the door angrily, "Come here, smash it." MRS Joe was shocked and shouted hurriedly, "Here comes someone. Someone is making trouble." Sun Yian was at home talking to Zhang Ning about the hospital exam. Butler Zhu came in a panic and reported, Madam, second young master, it's not good. Madam Su's shop was smashed, and she was injured and sent to the hospital." "What?" Sun Yian turned pale with fright and stood up in a panic. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 355. Chapter 355. MRS Joe is injured. Zhang Ning was also surprised and hurriedly asked someone to prepare a car and enter the city. Inside the hospital, the doctor was treating the wound on MRS Joe's forehead. MRS Joe gasped in pain from time to time. Alan, the little girl working in the shop, was embarrassed and had tears hanging from the corners of her eyes. Sun Yian hurriedly entered the hospital and shouted, "Anyang! Anyang!" When Madame Joe saw her, she seemed to have seen her backbone, and she cried aggrievedly, "Yan Yan, they went too far." Sun Yian was so irritated by the wound on MRS Joe's forehead that her eyes were red. She looked at Alan angrily, "What's going on? Why was my mother-in-law beaten like this? What's the background of the other party?" MRS Joe protected Alan, "Don't ask her. Even I don't know who the other party is." How could Alan know? Those people looked like rogues and habitual criminals. They smashed the shop and ran away without a trace. Nanny Yu, who was beside Zhang Ning, said slowly, "MRS Su, this is not necessarily the case. What if this girl provokes someone who shouldn't be provoked, and someone comes to implicate you?" MRS Joe is a little shaken. She is usually kind to others and has never had any quarrels with customers. Moreover, her shop is located near the college, and all the people who come here are reasonable people. No one will take the initiative to trouble her, let alone make promises. Now, the second young lady of Guanjin Haofu, who dares to offend her? Her son Sun Yuashan has been studying hard in the academy and working hard for Qi Wei. Now he doesn't necessarily come out once a month. She has to go in to see someone. It's impossible for her son to cause trouble. From this point of view, Alan is the most likely. Everyone looked at Alan. Alan was so frightened that he quickly knelt down and kept explaining to Mrs. Joe, "Madam, I really don't have any. I swear, I really didn't provoke those gangsters." Mrs. Joe couldn't bear it and promised her, "Yan Yan, it can't be Alan. She eats and sleeps in the shop and rarely leaves the shop. What trouble can she cause?" Alan's parents died early, and he and his brother sold themselves into slavery early. The brother and sister were lucky enough to be selected by Mrs. Joe. Alan's brother Chi Mo is now working with Sun Yuashan as a bookboy, while Alan has been living in the shop to look after him. Jiangning also felt that Alan didn't have the temperament to cause trouble, so he immediately frowned and asked, "Think about it carefully, do you really know none of those people?" Mrs. Joe shook her head without even thinking about it. Alan, on the other hand, said hesitantly, "When they started, I saw a familiar person among the crowd of people watching outside. He was Miss Xiru's brother." "Huh? You mean Fang Tingsheng? Why didn't I see him?" Mrs. Joe was confused. Fang Xiru was the wife she chose for Sun Yuashan. Fang Tingsheng and Sun Yuashan were classmates, and the two families matched each other. She shouted for help when the gangsters made trouble in the shop. If Fang Tingsheng was outside, he shouldn't remain indifferent. Alan shook his head vigorously, "It's not Mr. Fang, it's Ms. Xiru's other brother." "Madam, do you still remember the man we saw when we visited Fang's house that day?" "It's him." Mrs. Joe was surprised, "I remember that person looked like he didn't get along well with him." Alan nodded wildly, "Not only is he difficult to get along with, he is simply vicious. The two families obviously have a good relationship with Qin and Jin, but that one is very rude. He didn't even say hello when he saw his wife. The rest of the other family is also very cold. Is it possible that this matter has something to do with him?" Sun Yan clenched his fists bitterly. Mrs. Joe's expression changed drastically and she quickly tried to dissuade her, "Yan Yan, we have no evidence, so don't be impulsive." Jiangning winked at Aunt Yu who was beside him, and she immediately turned around and left. She said calmly, "We will find out if it is relevant. If it is relevant, this matter cannot be ignored so easily." At this moment, Sun Yuashan rushed into the hospital gasping for breath. "Anayang, how are you?" Sun Yan frowned dissatisfied, "Brother, there was an accident at Anayang's shop, why did you come so late?" Sun Yuashan looked remorseful and guilty, but he did not defend himself. "It's all my fault, it's my fault." Ms. Joe didn't want the brother and sister to get into trouble, so she covered her head and said, "Ouch, I have a headache." Sun Yan really no longer wanted to break up with Sun Yuashan. After the doctor prescribed medicine and explained Madame Joe's condition clearly, Sun Yan, the brother and sister helped Madame Joe out, one on the left and the other on the right. As soon as they stepped out of the door of the hospital, Fang Tingsheng also rushed over, and, "Tingsheng has just received the news, I'm late, are you in any serious trouble?" The concern on Fang Tingsheng's face didn't seem to be fake. Madame Joe was in a much better mood and asked hesitantly, Tingsheng. That day we were guests at your home and saw a man about your age. He was." A trace of uneasiness flashed across Fang Tingsheng's face, he coughed twice and lowered his eyes. "Auntie is asking about Kayezu, right? He is my uncle's child, that is, Xiru and I's cousin, because my uncle and aunt passed away one after another. My cousin has been fostered in our house. Xiru and I have been accustomed to calling him brother since we were young. What does this matter have to do with him?" MRS Joe was speechless for a moment and didn't know how to explain it. Jiangning, on the other hand, smiled and asked without changing his expression, how could Mr. Fang think so? When Fang Tingsheng heard this, he smiled helplessly and said, Master Ho, I don't know. Tingsheng's cousin has been fierce and aggressive since he was a child. He loves to make trouble. In addition, due to changes in his family, he has a sensitive temperament and is not very good at being kind to others. He often follows some the gangsters wandered together. Ada couldn't care, a Niang couldn't control it. Fortunately, he never brought the hooligan to the home, and a Niang could only open his eyes with one eye. Because he was not easy to get along with, Anyang rarely brought him to relatives and friends. Logically speaking, his aunt should not know him. Just when his aunt asked him suddenly, Tingsheng subconsciously thought that way. Everyone was stunned. MRS Joe smiled sheepishly, it's nothing, I just asked. Fang Tingsheng was inexplicably relieved. At this moment, a group of people not far away came to the hospital carrying stretchers and crying all the way. Fang Tingsheng recognized the person at a glance and shouted anxiously, Mom and Dad. Fang's mother saw her son with tears in her eyes, and immediately ran over with a cry, Tingsheng. Tingsheng. Your sister. When Fang Tingsheng saw the stretcher behind Mother Fang, his face instantly turned pale. What? What's going on? Fang's mother closed her eyes tightly and collapsed in despair. Xiru hanged. Everyone was stunned by this turn of events. The doctor checked Fang Xiru's pulse and shook his head. It's too late, go back and prepare for the funeral. Wow, Fang's mother burst into tears, and Fang's father was also in tears. Fang Tingsheng couldn't accept this fact. Why? Why did my sister hang herself when she was in good condition? A man rushed out from behind Father Fang and punched Sun Yuashan hard. It's all because of him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 356. Chapter 356, I forced my daughter to death. Ah Shan. My son, MRS Joe's eyes were splitting as she rushed to Sun Yuashan's side. The guards brought by Jiangning immediately controlled Su Yaezu. Su Yaezu's eyes were bloodshot and he struggled desperately, I'll kill you, you bastard. The guards pinned the man to the ground so that he could not move. Fang Tingsheng rushed to Su Yaezu, looking a little crazy, brother, what do you mean by this? Su Yaezu beat the ground desperately but refused to answer. Fang's mother hugged Fang Xiru's body and cried, it's all my fault, it's all my fault, if only I hadn't agreed to this marriage, woo woo woo. Others point and point. MRS Joe's mood changed from shock and heartache to anger. She was sure that Sun Yuashan was fine. She suddenly stood up and came to Fang's mother, my mother-in-law, please explain clearly, why is our family so sorry for Xiru? You want to slander us like this water. Father Fang knew about the relationship between the Su family and the Marquis of Guang'an, and was afraid that things would get serious, so he hurriedly stepped forward to talk to Zinni, my mother-in-law, Xiru didn't mean that. She was just talking nonsense because she was too sad about her daughter's death. Nonsense, MRS Joe laughed angrily, pointed at the crowd of onlookers and asked loudly, with so many people watching and listening, she came here casually, she clearly wants to frame our Su family for injustice. When we invited the matchmaker to come to our door to arrange the marriage, you agreed to the marriage, right? Do we feel sorry for you? Fang's father knew that he was wrong and was speechless. MRS Joe straightened her back more and more, is Xiru dissatisfied after the marriage is finalized? Fang's father shook his head again. Then our family can't stand Xiru, MRS Joe roared, her voice cracking. Fang Tingsheng knew there was something hidden in this matter by looking at Fang's father's reaction. Sun Yuashan covered his face, looked at Kayazu coldly, and said to Fang Tingsheng, "Brother Tingsheng, the reputation of a husband and a gentleman is more important than Mount Tai, and it cannot be tarnished for a moment. Now there is a matter of human life, and I want to sue the official. What do you think?" Sun Yuashan was so upright and aboveboard that Fang Tingsheng had already believed that he had no knowledge of it. When things got into this, he also wanted to find out the truth, so he nodded heavily immediately. Sun Yuashan turned around and bowed to Zhang Ning. Zhang Ning sighed softly, with a solemn look on his face, "I understand. Someone is here to take Kayazu and all relevant people to the government office." Fang's mother couldn't understand those formal words, and had no idea what Sun Yuashan and Fang Tingsheng said. Only then did she realize what she was saying, and she was so anxious that she said, "You can't report to the official, you can't report to the official." Fang Tingsheng gritted his teeth and shook his head, "Auntie, my sister cannot die in vain. We must report it to the official." Fang's mother collapsed on the ground as if struck by lightning. A group of people arrived at the government office. Ji Wei already knew what happened from Zhang Ning. He looked at Sun Yuashan with some sympathy in his eyes. "Su Zioki, what grievances do you have?" Sun Yuashan's posture was as tall as a pine and cypress. Even in this situation, he was still calm and collected. He slowly stepped forward and said, "Master Magistrate, I want to ask the Fang family for their innocence. Today, my wife, Miss Fang, who has not been here yet, hanged herself. Fang Ke, the Su family is accusing Ms. Fang's death of having something to do with it. We, the Su family, will never accept this kind of thing. Please give justice to our Su family." Ji Wei touched his chin thoughtfully. The Su family never forcibly married, and the Fang family girl was not forced to agree to this marriage. "Fang Ke, why do you say you regret marrying the Su family?" Fang's mother is resentful. She glanced at Father Fang and hesitated for a long time without saying anything. Seeing everyone staring at her, she closed her eyes sadly and shed 2 lines of tears. "It's all my fault. I don't agree with this." The child wanted to regret the marriage, so he hung himself because he couldn't think about it. "What?" Fang Tingsheng looked at Fang's mother in surprise, as if he didn't recognize her, and reacted very excitedly, "Auntie, why is this? The Su family has a pure and simple family style, and my aunt is very easy to get along with. Why don't you agree?" "Retreat." Ten Wanbu said, "Since Anyang didn't agree at first, why did she agree again?" Fang Tingsheng said everything Ji Wei wanted to say in one breath. "Fang Ke, why is this?" Fang's mother clenched her fists tightly and bit her lip tightly. Seeing that she could no longer remain silent, she whispered, "Because my daughter was married to someone on the fingertips when she was young, she cannot marry Sun Yuashan." Ouch! The people watching looked at Fang's mother in shock. Fang's mother felt the strange looks from everyone. Her face was as pale as paper. Fang Tingsheng felt like he was struck by lightning and almost fell over. When he came to his senses, he completely collapsed. "Auntie, what nonsense are you talking about? When did my little sister get married with someone's fingertips? I don't want to do this kind of thing, I know. What are you hiding from me?" "Son. Mom, please stop asking. Your sister was actually married before she was born. Your father didn't want to admit it and insisted on agreeing to the Su family's marriage." Fang's mother pointedly pointed out that Fang's father was wrong. Father Fang was so angry that he almost vomited blood, and the hand pointing at Mother Fang was trembling. Fang's mother burst into tears and begged, "Just admit it. This matter is all my fault. I will die to make amends for our daughter." Fang's father was finally defeated and did not refute. Fang Tingsheng couldn't believe this fact and was a little stunned. Sun Yan watched silently and asked aloud, "Who is Miss Fang marrying with her fingertips?" Everyone looked at Fang's mother. Fang's mother gritted her teeth and didn't answer. At this time, Grandma Yu hurried in and whispered a lot in Zhang Ning's ear. Zhang Ning looked at Ji Wei and said loudly, "Master Ji, could you please send someone to Yong'an Lane in the north of the city to arrest Chen San and the others? They are the people who went to Su's restaurant to cause trouble and hurt others today." Fang's mother's face changed drastically, and she suddenly turned her head to look at Kei Yezu, who was pinned to the ground by the yamen, her chest heaving violently. Chen San and his group hid after causing trouble today. They thought they were strangers and Mrs. Zhou couldn't recognize them. Who knew that Aunt Yu, through Kei Yezu, immediately locked their whereabouts and a group of people were arrested? I was still struggling and quibbling. When I got to the government office and was identified by Mrs. Zhou on the spot, I gave up. Zhang Ning knew that these scoundrels were old fools and had no fear of entering the yamen. It would be of no use to pay for the money. He immediately said to Ji Wei, "Sir, there was a disaster in Kuzhu Prefecture last year and there were heavy casualties. I really can't bear the trouble. Although these scum are not things, they are not completely useless, such as the city wall." Ji Wei's eyes lit up and he smiled, "The Marquis is really smart. Come here, beat Chen San and the others into criminal slaves and let them build the city wall." Chen San was shocked and said, Sir, the villain is just provoking troubles, why should we be punished so harshly? They used to do this kind of thing a lot, they just slapped a few boards at a time and were released after 2 days in jail. Nothing happened. Ji Wei smiled coldly, "Why? Just because the emperor has given me special privileges. As long as I am still the prefect of Kuzhu, I will have the final say on matters in Kuzhu Prefecture. Anyway, he is barefoot and is not afraid of wearing shoes. As long as he solves the problems of the city wall and the earth temple, reputation is not important. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over." Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 357. Chapter 357 The Real Secret. The criminals who were exiled here by the imperial court are still on the road. Every day, the wages paid to the working people here are a lot of money. If you can save a little, you will add up. Chen San never expected that Ji Wei would say such willful words. Seeing how serious he was so frightened that he tried to do anything. "Sir, spare your life, it's none of our business." "It's Kei Yezu, he asked us to do it." Kei Yezu's eyes wanted to tear Chen San alive. Chen San was scared to death, but compared to building the city wall, offending Kei Yezu was nothing. He hurriedly said, "What the common people said is true. Kei Yezu said that the hatred of taking his wife is irreconcilable, and he wants to destroy the Su family. It's just that he can't get into Kuzhu Academy, let alone cause trouble inside, so let's teach Sun Yuashan's mother a lesson first." He said that the people in the south of the city had never seen us and would definitely not recognize us. After the matter was done, we would immediately go back to the north of the city to hide for a few days. As long as the news was over, he would give each of us 50 coins. Fang Tingsheng took 2 steps forward angrily. "How can he, an idle gangster, give each of you 50 cents? Where did he get the money?" Chen San subconsciously looked at Fang Mu. He said that his aunt was rich and would give him several hundred coins every month. Niang, Fang Tingsheng couldn't bear it anymore. Fang's mother cried, "That's the property that my uncle and aunt left to your cousin. I just help take care of it. I'm also afraid that he will squander it, so I give him a little bit every month." Fang Ting was so angry that his brain almost exploded, and his voice was trembling when he spoke. "Don't think that I don't know how my uncle died. He was forced to death by debt collectors. My aunt committed suicide when she couldn't live, and the K family was completely destitute. Where is the wealth left for him? Dad, you just let grandma do what you want." Fang's father closed his eyes in pain. Mother Fang's face turned red when her son asked her, and she became angry and broke the pot. "Yes. It's the money I gave him, So what? If it hadn't been for your uncle back then, your father would have died long ago. Your uncle has saved your father's life, so what if my father raises your cousin as his own son? He can afford your education, so what's the matter with giving your cousin a month's money? Fang Tingshen's heart suddenly turned cold. He staggered back 2 steps and held back his tears. It's not that great. I only care about my sister's death. Today I must find out the cause of my sister's death and seek justice for her. No one can hide past. Mother Fang met her son's persistent eyes and was so angry that she choked. You are unfilial. Mrs. Zhou frowned, stepped forward and said to Ji Wei, Sir, I don't want to interfere with the Fang family's affairs. Since Chen San has confessed, please handle Kaiezu in accordance with the law. Before Ji Wei said anything, Fang's mother became anxious. My mother-in-law, my daughter is dead. For the sake of my daughter, please spare her cousin once. I beg you. Fang's mother kept kowtowing to Mrs. Zhou. Sun Yan subconsciously pulled Madame Zhou away, her eyes full of displeasure with her other mother. Fang Tingshen couldn't understand and shouted, Auntie! Are you crazy? Fang's mother seemed not to hear. Mammy, you said something more in Mrs. Zhou's ear. Madame Zhou looked furious and jumped up regardless of the wound on her forehead. Sir, Miss Fang is my unmarried daughter-in-law. She died in an unknown way. The women of the village suspect that Miss Fang did not commit suicide but was forced to death. Please do an autopsy. Fang Tingshen was shocked and angry. Hearing this, he immediately expressed his stance. I beg you, sir, to give my little sister justice. No. I don't agree. Mother Fang's voice was sharp and her emotions were very intense. She guarded Fang Xiru's body to prevent anyone from getting close. The more she behaves like this, the more it proves that there is something wrong with Fang Xiru's death. Fang Tingshen couldn't bear it any longer, so he stepped forward and dragged Fang's mother away, shouting at the Yamen official, autopsy. No, no, no. You treacherous son, treasonous son. Are you willing to force me to death? Fang's mother struggled like crazy and bit Fang Tingshen's hand hard. Ah, Fang Ting shouted in pain. Fang's father was frightened to death. He rushed over and slapped Fang's mother hard, then took Fang Tingshen's hand off and said, K. Are you crazy? This is your own son. Fang's mother saw Fang Tingshen's hands and panicked for a moment. I didn't mean it, I just... Fang Tingshen protected his hands numbly and turned to follow the Yamen to see the doctor. Fang's mother stared blankly at her son's bleak back, howled loudly, collapsed completely, and lay on the ground. The results of Wu Zhou's autopsy were very fast. As soon as Fang Tingshen's injuries were treated, Wu Zhou appeared. Sir, there were no abnormal injuries on the deceased's body. He did hang himself and died. However, my subordinates discovered that the deceased was not intact, and had already died before his death 2 months pregnant. Everyone was shocked and looked at Sun Yao Mountain. Sun Yuashan's face was ashen and he clenched his fists tightly. I have been studying hard behind closed doors in Kuzhu Academy since the beginning of the year. Many classmates testified for me, including Miss Fang's eldest brother. Everyone looked at Fang Tingshen again. But I saw him bursting into tears, and his whole body seemed to have lost all energy. Chen San seized the opportunity and shouted loudly, Sir, the common people know that this was done by Kaiezu. He had always said that his aunt betrothed his cousin to him when he was a child, but later she disliked poverty and preferred wealth, so she wanted to betroth his cousin to someone else. He was worried about this, and then he suddenly stopped talking about it. We teased him about marrying a wife, but he said that he already had a wife and couldn't run away. He must have done nothing wrong, sir. Can we make meritorious deeds? Ji Wei glanced at Chen San and the others coldly, and those people suddenly did not dare to say anything. Fang Tingshen stood up, walked to Kaiezu, and stared at him. It was you who defiled Xiru and forced her to hang herself. He used declarative sentences instead of rhetorical questions, and said the facts. Ieyasu saw that his background had been taken away, and he had nothing to argue with. He just laughed obscenely and said, "We are getting married on the fingertips, and we are doing the courtesy of Dukja. It is natural and natural. She is mine." Bang! Fang Tingshen's intact hand gave Ieyasu a hard slap, knocking him to the ground. He immediately got up and knelt down to Jiwei, and said loudly, "Your Majesty, Ieyasu has defiled my sister to the point that my sister committed suicide, please punish Ieyasu with death." Tingshen, Mother Fang yelled, "He is your uncle's only bloodline. At first, my mother didn't want to agree to this marriage to the Su family. It was your father who insisted on agreeing, and your sister was also happy, so I couldn't. I don't agree. I'm sorry for the promise I made back then. How can you still force your cousin to die and make your uncle die? Such a scumbag is not worthy of a queen. If he doesn't die, I will kill him with my own hands," Fang Tingshen yelled angrily. "Then you'll kill me too," Mother Fang refused to give in. The mother and son have completely lost their past kindness and filial piety. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 358. Chapter 358. The honest man is anxious. Quiet, Ji Wei's face turned livid, and he slapped the scaffolding hard. "Where do you think this place is? How dare you be so presumptuous? Come here." Ieyasu defiled Fang Xiru, causing Fang Xiru to hang himself, and instigated Chen San and others to smash Su. In a shop, Mrs. Zhou was injured. The evidence was conclusive and she was sentenced to be burned and executed after 7 days. She and others were sentenced to build the city wall for 2 years. If they commit the crime again, they would be severely punished. "Sir, have mercy on me, please have mercy on me. I have an 80-year-old mother and a 3-year-old child to feed. I beg you to have mercy on me," Chen San cried bitterly, feeling full of regret. The gangsters who followed Chen San were all dumbfounded. The reason why they became gangsters was that they either had no parents at home and had no one to discipline them, or they were spoiled and spoiled. Regardless of the reason, these people could not bear the hardship of building the city wall. Ji Wei's move was like a snake hitting him 7 inches, and it would kill them. Ji Wei waved his hands impatiently, and the yamen immediately dragged Chen San and others out. Fang's mother went crazy when she heard the verdict and threw herself at Ieyasu. "You can't kill him, you can't kill him. He is innocent. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I will die for him. I die for him." No one paid attention to her. Mother Fang could only ask for help from others. With just one glance, she ran to Zhongning and knelt down. "Master Marquis, please be merciful. Please spare Ieyazu's life. I will definitely repay what our family owes to the Su family." "Repay? What do you want to repay?" "I want Xiru to live. Can you do it?" Mrs. Zhou's eyes were splitting. She grabbed Fang's mother's collar and asked her to look at the stretcher. "The murderer killed Xiru, killed your daughter, and you actually interceded for the murderer. You are not worthy of being Xiru's mother. If such a good girl was killed, he should be cut into pieces." Mrs. Zhou was scolding and crying, feeling heartbroken. Others saw that Fang Xiru's own mother was not as grieving as her future mother-in-law, and they all lamented and accused Fang's mother of being cold-blooded. Ji Wei didn't want to continue making trouble, so he asked the yamen to Ieyasu away. At this moment, Ieyasu fought hard and rushed towards Sunyo Mountain, with a broken blade in his hand. At the critical moment, Sun Yan suddenly stepped out and tripped Ieyasu down. The guard beside Zhongning stepped forward and stepped on Ieyasu's chest. Zhongning coldly ordered, "If you break the tendons of your hands and hamstrings, don't let him hurt anyone." The guards moved very quickly, and Ieyasu's painful roar sounded in the courtroom. Fang's mother was so heartbroken that she almost fainted. Yaman dragged Kaiezu down. Zhang Ning thanked Ji Wei and left with everyone in the Su family. Fang Tingsheng walked to Father Fang and supported him, tears rolling down his eyes. "Dad, let's go collect the body of my little sister." Fang's father nodded, his expression showing pain. Sun Yuashan came to the two of them, clasped his fists and bowed, "Uncle, Tingsheng, Miss Xiru is my unmarried wife. She was killed by an adulterer. I'm really sorry for you. I know the rules of the city, so I can let Miss Xiru be treated as such. My wife's order was buried." Fang's father and Fang Tingsheng both looked at him in astonishment, seeing Sun Yuashan's sincere face. Fang Tingsheng resented Kaiezu even more. If it weren't for him, Xiru would have lived an extremely happy life in the future. Fang Tingsheng closed his eyes in pain and forced a wry smile. "Yuashan, I know your good intentions, but, no need, this matter is because our family can't tolerate you, and there is no reason why it will affect your future marriage. Although my sister cannot be buried in the Fang family land, but I will ask the Taoist monk to choose a geomantic treasure land for her. It is quiet and good." Father Fang nodded in agreement. "What Tingsheng said is that my daughter is unlucky. Just forget about this marriage. Study hard and be good." Sun Yuashan felt uncomfortable. Seeing that the father and son had given up their will, he could only obey. As soon as Sun Yuashan left, Fang Tingsheng helped Fang's father leave, leaving Fang's mother sitting on the ground in despair. Fang Xiru died an ignominious death, and something like that happened during his lifetime. In order to avoid attracting public attention, the Fang family and his son went to the coffin shop to buy a coffin for Fang Xiru after leaving the county office. The body was parked in Yizhuang and a place was selected for burial 3 days later. It's almost dark after these days of work. When the father and son returned home and did not see Fang's mother, Fang's father sighed and said to Fang Tingsheng, "You have a good rest at home, and I will go find your mother-in-law." Fang Tingsheng stopped him. "Dad, don't go. That Kaiezu is not dead yet. She will be fine. My little sister died so miserably, but she can't handle it so well. You can cool her down for a while to help her wake up." Father Fang sighed again. "Tingsheng, no matter what, she is the mother who gave birth to you and raised you. It was indeed your uncle who saved my life back then. Your mother-in-law and your uncle have a deep love for each other. She can protect Kaiezu's father, understand, just. It's just a chill, right?" Fang Tingsheng looked at him blankly. Fang's father was speechless. The father and son were silent for a moment. As expected, Fang's father went back to the house and did not go out to look for Fang's mother. It wasn't until the next morning that Fang's mother came back in a daze. When she saw Fang Tingsheng, she immediately grabbed his arm hysterically and cursed, "You are a fool. None of your family members named Fang are good people. If Yezu dies, I will not alive anymore. Then you just go and die." Fang Tingsheng pushed Fang's mother away indifferently, his eyes full of frost. Fang's mother met his eyes, and her heart suddenly became cold. She covered her face and cried bitterly, "You actually want me to die, you actually want me to die." Fang Tingsheng angrily rebuked, "In your eyes, my little sister and I are not as good as that rotten guy Kaiezu. I, Fang Tingsheng, put my words here today. In this world, there is him without me, with me without him. You can do whatever you want, go ahead and make a fuss. Trouble everyone to death. Tingsheng. Stop irritating your mother-in-law." Father Fang stopped him disapprovingly. Fang Tingsheng couldn't listen. "Dad, I just want Kaiezu to die. In 7 days, I will go to the execution ground to beat gongs, drums, and set off firecrackers to celebrate that there is one less villain in the world." You mother." Fang rolled her eyes and fainted. Fang Tingsheng, who was full of resentment, could not feel a trace of worry or guilt at this time, and walked out of the house without looking back. Father Fang was heartbroken and cried loudly. He didn't know how this family had become like this. Fang's mother didn't see her son when she woke up, and kept asking Fang's father. Fang's father said helplessly, "He has returned to the academy." Fang's mother couldn't vent her frustration, so she took it out on Fang's father. "There is no good person in your Fang family. He will not end well if he treats his cousin and mother like this." "Pa," Fang's father slapped Fang's mother hard, his eyes cold and fierce. "K, there is a limit to human patience. I have already lost a daughter, and I have paid back the life I owe the K family. K Yezu, you must pay for the sins you have committed. If you dare to lay your hands on my son, I will never let you go." K. She was stunned. She covered her face and looked at the person on the pillow in disbelief. Forced by Father Fang's eyes, she finally stopped going crazy and saw Tian'er crying. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 359. Chapter 359, Fang Tingshen's Revenge. Father Fang didn't care what she should do. 7 days later, many people were watching the excitement outside the execution ground. Fang's mother cried for 7 days in a row. She was ill, but she still rushed over to see Yezu off with her seriously ill body. Unexpectedly, she saw a scene that made her vomit blood. I saw festive red banners hanging around the execution ground, and many children beating gongs and drums and singing loudly. The K family has no motherly education, and is born to be a bully. Everyone hates it. It is worse than an animal. In this life, it is reviled. He was still trampled by everyone after his death. Stop talking, Mother Fang rushed towards the children like crazy, but the children nimbly dodged them, and there were many children beating gongs and drums. She couldn't stop her at all, she was so angry. His whole body was trembling, so he grabbed a random child and asked sternly, "Who told you to do this?" The child was so frightened that he cried loudly and pointed at Fang Tingshen not far away. Fang's mother looked resentful and reproachful. Fang Tingshen, on the other hand, had no expression on his face. He shook the firecrackers in his hands from time to time and opened and closed his mouth to say the word bad luck. The prison van drove slowly forward, and the children began to sing in unison, specifically for Yezu in the prison van. Yezu was tortured in prison for 7 days. There was no good place on his body. He wished he could die soon. He was completely unmoved when he heard the songs sung by children. When Fang's mother saw him, she burst into tears. Yezu! Yezu! You can't die! At this moment, an enigmatic monk passed by and said loudly without squinting his eyes, Amitabha, when you were born, you did not think about doing good deeds and accumulated virtues. You committed many evil deeds and your body was full of hostility. After your death, you will be punished in the Abi hell and will never be reincarnated as a human being. The donor is confused. Yezu suddenly opened his ferocious eyes and gritted his teeth viciously. Old bald donkey, I'm not scared. If there are really ghosts and gods in this world, just let them come. I want to see what they can do to me. It's not a pity to die if you persist in your stubbornness, the monk said calmly and left without looking back. Yezu was still shouting in his eyes. Fang's mother was so frightened that her face turned pale. She wanted to chase the monk to ask for the solution, but was reluctant to leave Yezu, and was in a dilemma. Fang Tingshen just watched the scene silently, with a hint of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. Perhaps what the monk said to Yezu touched the fear in his heart. He who originally wanted to die suddenly struggled and begged for mercy before the execution, crying bitterly. The executioner didn't give him a chance to talk nonsense. When the time came, he raised the knife and dropped it. Looking at the head that rolled to the ground, Mother Fang rolled her eyes and fainted completely. Zhu San went back and reported everything that happened to Zhang Ning and Sun Yin. Zhang Ning frowned and smiled. They say you can't offend a scholar if you offend anyone. I've seen it today. Sun Yin nodded. What Anyang said is that Fang Tingsheng is so ruthless. Shi cherishes Yezu so much, but he did so much before Yezu died. Shi is afraid that he will hate his own son. Zhang Ning let out a long breath and didn't take it seriously. Why doesn't Fang Tingsheng hate Ke? Otherwise, he wouldn't have made these commotions to make Ke faint. Fortunately, your eldest brother has no conflict with Fang Tingsheng, and he also proposed that Fang Xiru be buried in your grave. In the future, Fang Tingsheng will never blame the Su family for these things. Today is a good day. You go back with your things to see your grandma, and tell her by the way. As for your eldest brother's wedding, please wait until autumn is over. Hatched all his promises and returned to Xinghua village with his things. As soon as she left, Liang Hongchang came to Dongli Villa with his son Liang Xiaoqian to ask for a meeting. Zhang Ning glanced at Grandma Yu and asked people to invite the Liang family and his son in. Liang Hongchang led his son to salute Zhang Ning respectfully. Zhang Ning smiled and said, Master Liang, you are also a frequent visitor to our Dongli Villa. If you have anything to say, just say it straight to the point without using any nonsense. She was referring to Liang Hongchang coming over and giving gifts. Liang Hongchang had frequent negotiations with Yang Erden because of the construction of the north of the city. They also lived in Yuran for a period of time. She participated in the design of the north of the city and had been in contact with him for a long time. She also knew Liang Hongchang's temperament. This old man is the most upright, he doesn't know how to dig into the camp, and he doesn't like to flatter people the most. He has been a construction department for most of his life and has never thought of finding a way to climb up. Today, the sun comes out from the west, and he actually comes to the door with congratulatory gifts. Liang Hongchang blushed, sneered twice, and quickly pushed his son forward. Master Marquis, the main reason why I came here today is for Kwanzaa's lifelong event. As soon as these words were spoken, Liang Hongchang breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Ning was very surprised and looked at Liang Xiaoqian up and down several times. I remember that this kid was studying with my third and fourth son, right? He will be gone in a few days. Liang Xiaoqian smiled awkwardly and said, for your information, Lord Marquis, I know that my knowledge is not as solid as that of the third and fourth sons. This examination is just for gaining experience, and I probably won't be able to pass it. With such self-awareness and such a good attitude, Zhang Ning suddenly had a good impression of him, and there was a bit of a smile on his face. You are sincere. Tell me, which girl do you like in Zhuangzi? She checked all the marriageable girls around her and roughly guessed who Liang Xiaoqian was looking for. Liang Xiaoqian looked back at his father, took a deep breath, bowed, and replied loudly, Master Marquis, I want to marry Miss Yang Suiyan. Yang Suiyan was Yang area. None of the girls in the old Yang family had a decent name. After Yang area came to Fukan, she followed Zhang Ning. Occasionally when people asked when she went out, she kept saying that area and area were not very suitable, so she just said Yang area took such a famous name. A flash of hesitation flashed in Zhang Ning's eyes. Mr. Liang, do you know the situation at Shui Yan's family? Liang Xiaoqian nodded repeatedly, his handsome face flushed. Junior has met Miss Yang several times before and asked the fourth young master. The fourth young master has informed this junior about the situation in Miss Suiyan's home. Zhang Ning was very curious, so you still want to ask for marriage? Liang Xiaoqian nodded firmly. This junior is happy with Miss Suiyan, and has also thought carefully about the situation of Miss Suiyan's biological mother. If this junior asks to marry her, it will most likely affect his career, but this junior also has self-awareness. Based on the junior's qualifications, it is the blessing of the ancestors that he can pass the examination in this life. I don't want to miss such a good girl for those illusory futures. I talked carefully with my parents for a long time before settling on it. Therefore, I came here today after careful consideration and begging the Marquis to grant my permission. This approach can be said to be extremely bold in this world. Zhang Ning subconsciously looked at Liang Hongchang and said, Master Liang, are you no longer trying to persuade me? Liang Hongchang smiled bitterly, the Marquis has also seen it. This child has made up his mind. As a father, I don't have much ability. I can't let him regret the marriage for the rest of his life. Since he knows it's good and still insists, we can only respect it. Zhang Ning nodded and sighed, I understand Master Liang's thoughts, and I understand your thoughts, but after all, the child still has his biological parents, grandparents, and grandparents. This matter must be discussed with the elders. I will discuss it again after a while. Can I give you an accurate answer? Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 360. Chapter 360 Asking for Marriage. Then there's Lord Lao. Liang Hongchang kicked the anxious son and pulled him up to leave. Hua Ji personally sent the person out, then walked in excitedly and said, Madam, are you looking for a girl? Zhang Ning thought for a while and asked, where did she go? Hua Ji hurriedly replied, she should be working at the second young lady's place. Today is not the 15th day of the Lunar New Year, so she won't go out. Since there was a Salesian home in the north of the city, Yang area would go to the temple on the 1st and 15th day of every lunar month, and then go to the Salesian home to deliver snacks to the children, using all the money she earned. She was happy, and so was Zhang Ning. Just ignore it. When Huaji called Yang area over, she was still a little confused about the situation. Zhang Ning let Huaji watch the tea, looked at her carefully, and asked with a smile, are you still used to staying here? Yang area nodded nervously, Auntie, it's a good place here. Area feels at ease here. Originally, she and Yang Fugui were going to live back in Xinghua village, but there were a lot of things going on in the brick kiln. Yang Fugui didn't want to bother, so he simply lived in the brick kiln. It was not safe for her to go back and forth every day, so she also lived in Zhuangzi. Come down. Zhang Ning's smile deepened a little, just feel at ease. Do you still remember why you left the village in the first place? Yang area nodded again, with a bit more hesitation on his face, and his voice became much softer, it's because of my father. Zhang Ning patted her shoulder comfortingly, you children shouldn't be responsible for adults' affairs. I called you here today mainly because someone came to me to ask me to marry you. I also wanted to ask you what you meant. Yang area was shocked, this is impossible. Having been in Fukan for so long, she is no longer the ignorant girl she was before. The beautiful visions that Anai told her were just filling her with honey and sugar water, which were simply not realistic. With her parents' situation, what kind of good family would like her? She had already thought about living like this for the rest of her life. When she saved up money, she would go to work in the Salesian home and treat the orphans there as her own children. She would not be afraid that no one would give her a good death when she was old. What's impossible? Zhang Ning glanced at her angrily and distressedly, and said slowly, did you know that the son of Mr. Liang, the government's construction department, is Liang Xiaoqian, who is studying at Kuzhu Academy? Yang area thought about it carefully, and after thinking for a long time, she said with a sudden look on her face, the eldest uncle is talking about the young master who often walks with Sizhuang. I have met him several times, always at Kuzhu Academy. At that time, Kuzhu Academy took in many lonely elderly people and orphans. She helped take care of the orphans. Occasionally she met Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang. Yang Sizhuang was young and stayed at the academy to help. She often brought people over to give them things, back and forth. She also talked to Liang Xiaoqian several times. That's right, Zhang Ning looked at her happily, and what he said was quite meaningful, Everyone in the world says just do good deeds and don't worry about your future. If you have done so many good deeds, God will always give you some blessings. Then Mr. Liang came to me today and was very determined to ask for your marriage. I even told her about your father and mother-in-law, but he didn't care. He only said that his qualifications were limited and he would not achieve much in his career in the future. Don't want to miss a good girl. Area, I don't want to interfere too much in your lifelong matter, but I have worked with Mr. Liang for half a year and know that he is a fair and reasonable man, and he can't get rid of the dirt in his eyes. He is a very principled person. Such a person will teach his son character. Not bad. The Liang family is the best choice for you. You can think about it carefully. If you are worried that the things your father and mother have done will affect Mr. Liang's future, it would be easier. I will write a letter and give it to your father and grandma. Just transfer it to my name. Uncle, Yang Area was very surprised. At this moment, she suddenly felt the feeling of being loved by her mother. She was moved to tears and knelt down to Jiangning. I have grown up so big, and my parents have never thought about me like this. Pass. Silly boy. Get up. Jiangning motioned to Huaji to help Yang Area up, and said, since I promised your grandma to take care of you, I will naturally keep my word. You go back and think about it carefully. If you agree, I will give it to you. Let me write to you to explain this. Area understands. Yang Area left the big house and immediately went to the brick kiln to find Yang Fugui. Yang Fugui was in charge of several brothels, and he became much more cheerful, and he became more and more decent in talking and doing things. When he saw Yang Area coming, he gave a warning and went out. Second sister, what's the matter? Yang Area took a deep breath excitedly, and it took a moment to tell her about the Liang family's request to marry her. Yang Fugui was surprised and then ecstatic. That's great, second sister. My aunt has said so, so you agree quickly without hesitation. You also think this marriage is good, don't you? Nonsense, Yang Fugui looked anxious. Auntie is always very proper no matter what she does. She takes the initiative and wants to transfer you to her name. What else are you thinking about? You can't get rid of such a family. Missed. But will Dad agree? Yang Area was very worried. Yang Fugui snorted coldly and clenched his fists fiercely. If he really treats you as his daughter, he shouldn't object. Besides, I'm here. If he doesn't agree, I won't support him until his death. Yang Area was convinced and turned around and gave Jiangning a positive reply. Jiangning immediately called Butler Zhu and asked him to go to Ping'an County. Sun Yan stayed at her parents' house until evening before coming back. When she heard that the Liang family wanted to marry Yang Area, she was stunned for a moment and then congratulated Yang Area in person, feeling somewhat regretful. After getting along with each other for this period of time, she became more and more appreciative of Yang Area. Unfortunately, her mother-in-law didn't have this intention. Now she can only give her blessings. Steward Zhu rushed to Rongsha village, looked at the sky, and went directly to the workshop. Ms. Li was very surprised when she saw him coming. Butler Zhu said, "Old madam, I am sending you a letter to tell you something." Ms. Li paused and immediately took Butler Zhu home. Joe thought for a while and followed. Inside the old house, Butler Zhu stopped Ms. Li, who was busy, and said, "Old madam, let's talk about serious matters first. This is a letter written by madam to you." Steward Zhu took out the letter and knew that Li was illiterate, so he read it to her on the spot. Before Ms. Li said anything, Ms. Joe was so shocked that she covered her mouth. Sister-in-law has found such a good match for Area. She also wants to adopt Area into her name. She is so generous. Mr. Li was so happy that she gave Mr. Joe a hard look and asked carefully with Butler Zhu, "Is this Liang family really an official?" Butler Zhu nodded heavily, "It's absolutely true. Mr. Liang is the head of the Fukan construction department. His official position is not big, but he also receives a salary from the court. The Liang family has lived in Fukan for generations, and they also have some wealth. The family is well off and the family tradition is upright. If Mr. Liang hadn't personally led it, Mrs. Liang didn't even dare to think of Mr. Liang coming to ask for his hand in marriage. Madam also thinks that this marriage is excellent, and she is afraid that Miss Swayan will miss this good marriage, so she asks me to make a trip. If the old lady agrees, I will wait until you have settled the adoption matter before going back.